Holy smokes, we are live. We are live. Welcome to College Football's Peek Around the Corner with your host, Greg Flugar. We cover everything, and I mean everything in college football because we love everything in college football. And if you do as well, please subscribe to our channel. Smash the like button. If you like our content, share the video with your family and your friends. If you want to support this college football outpost, Rebel Outpost channel, hit the $sign when you make a comment and we'll get you a super chat as quick as I possibly can. Welcome everybody. Everybody, welcome into the studio that sits on the corner of Keith Jackson Parkway and Kurt Gowdy Avenue. Do not be afraid. Do not be afraid to be a legend. With your comments in the chat room, with your phone calls, later in the show. It is Memorial Day. Very important day in our country. Very important day for me. Some gave all gave some. And I just want to remember all those who have died for our country, fighting, keeping our freedom. And Memorial Day, that is what today is all about. It's the first Memorial Day without my father in my lifetime, so it is kind of a tough one because we still have his flag that he received when he passed away in September. We got it up on the ledge. It will go with him and his ashes when in a more appropriate time. Going to Fort Snelling, going to be buried with the rest of the people who served our country here in Minnesota. So anyways, Memorial Day, my blessings, my prayers to everybody who have served this country. Okay, let's get to it. We got SEC spring meetings coming up this week. Greg Sankey, he was asked about it. Today we're going to be going through his comments. As everybody knows in the PATC community, I have yet to be really impressed with Tony Petitti and Greg Sankey. Maybe in the future, maybe someday I'll come on this live show and go, wow. Wow, these guys are brilliant. Wow, these guys are smart. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen it yet. I know I'm supposed to be pumping sunshine into everybody. That's how you watch these college football shows. You want to feel good about your team, about your situation, about your backup quarterback, about your special teams, about your commissioner. And I never seem to give you that good, positive information. I don't know. I get it. The SEC is the most powerful country, most powerful conference in the country. The most valuable conference, them or the Big Ten, whatever, when it comes to value. But how much is that as Greg Sankey's doing? The way he talks, his vision, I think it comes up way short. Tony Petitti, I like the fact that Tony Petitti does not get out in front of his presidents in the Big Ten like Kevin Warren did. But you can't get him on record for anything. I'm in the minority. I know everybody, great. Don't you understand? These are the two leaders of the college football world. The sport that you love. The sport that you comment on every single day. The sport in which you have built a PATC community with. I get it. They're the most two powerful commissioners. I get it. They have an advisory board. I get it. They're leading the charge. I get it. But I'm also going to read you something that Greg Sankey said tonight. A couple of things. And it's like, what are you saying? Don't say that. I don't know. You can let me have it in the chat room with the phone calls. You can let me know how wrong I got it once again. And then we're going to go through an interesting article, College Football News, an article that was written a little bit ago, a couple weeks ago, talking about the ACC football season here in 2024. We're getting there. June, July, this is when we start making our predictions. This is when we start analyzing all the teams, doing a deep dive. We did a spring spotlight on many of the teams, maybe about half of them, a little less than half of the Power 5 conferences. But now that the portal is over with, we're going into a deep dive. In this article, I thought was outstanding in giving just a little bit more information on the ACC season that is coming up. And I'm going to tell you something. Greg the Cooler, unfortunately, I am going to make outlandish predictions in the ACC this year. I am going to prove, unfortunately for me, that my name should be Greg the Cooler when we're talking about the ACC, or when we're talking about anything in college football. But the ACC, I have fallen in love, I have fallen into the trap, and I can't get out. I cannot get out. So we're going to be talking about the ACC this article. And then the main story. Utah possibly going to the ACC in the future. First of all, I'm going to treat this with all the respect. I'm not going to be hammering on people, and I'm not going to misreport what people have said. In fact, I'm not even going to go down that route. A couple weeks ago, we had an exclusive here at Peek Around the Corner in which we said that Kansas, and we're standing by it every step of the way, that Kansas would be in play, is going to be in play if and when the SEC decides to go to 20 schools. Your Virginia, North Carolina State, Kansas are all going to be in play for school 19 and 20 if the SEC goes beyond 18. We did not report that Kansas is going to the SEC. We did not report that Kansas is talking with the SEC, even though both of those statements have been attached to my name all over the place, on college football YouTube channels, on message boards, whatever. I'm used to it. It comes with the territory, but I'm not going to do the same thing to some individuals that said there's a possibility of Utah going to the ACC in the future. They're not reporting that it's happening. They're just reporting that there's a possibility. I don't think there is. I really don't think there is a possibility, and I'm going to go through the reasons why. This is not the angle that Utah is angling for. It's not what Kyle Whittingham was talking about back in the day. Utah, all those four corner schools, Stanford and California, as we all know, had all discussions with the ACC. They all firmed up their positioning. That's the key. Stay with me here. Peek Around the Corner community. Stay with me here. When the Pac-12 was in, when PATC was reporting to you accurately that the Pac-12 was in a whole lot of trouble, that we had on any given Saturday sports book, the odds favored the Big 12 poaching the Pac-12. Whenever they said it could never happen, it could never happen. The elitists in the Pac-12, they would never split. None of them would go to the Big 12. None of them would. Look at my chart. Look at my chart. None of the Pac-12 schools would ever go to the Big 12. People like that are lying to you. Craig Pflugar is lying to you. Each of those Pac-12 schools learned their position, their valuation in the college football world during those months. Utah learned a lot. California learned a lot. It was much different than what Utah learned. So we're going to be going through that. If you are a long time member of the Peek Around the Corner community, if you can remember what we said about the Pac-12's valuation, those schools. Remember what we said about Utah. Remember what we said about what USC said about Utah. So we're going to go into that at the end of our monologue. I want to thank everybody for coming on in. I did ask the community, you want to all talk some college football tonight? 75% of you said yes. Out of 89 votes, we had it up for 30 minutes. 15% of you, almost 16% of you said no, and 9% said yes, but not with PATC. So we almost had a 25% of you said no. Not with PATC. No or yes with PATC. You know what? That's a pretty good number. Because, as you all know, at Flug Empire, we don't block anybody. We have 0.0000000 people blocked. So we've got a lot of PATC. We've got some stalkers in there. We've got some, we got a whole mix of people that read every single comment that we made. So I was surprised that we got 75%. 75% of you said yes. So we decided to come on live. So I want to thank everybody who has come here at the beginning of the show. Cameron B, Rock, Chalk, J, Hawk, Mr. Buckeye, Gerald Jones, Texas Tech, Red Raider, Laura Weiss is in the house, GT, Don Scruggs, the Walking Geek, Jordan 132, Andrew Creel is in the house, Miss Minnesota, Seminole, the Cyclone is here, Matt Neeson, Mr. Clemson Tiger, DP, Old Dad is in the house, the Georgia Bulldog, Don Scruggs, Bob Swanger, MGC Sooner, R. Webb, holy smokes, the evil badger himself. The evil badger himself, who's becoming awfully close to becoming the godfather of the Smacks, Mr. Jeff Olson is in the house. David Hackett, Mr. Terrapin, Crab Cakes and Football, Steele Austin is in the house. Sean is here. Expedition Greg is here at the start of the show. Antoine Coates is here. Sean, David Hackett, and Mason Blue. Friends call me Sean. Anthony Carlson, Mr. Spartan is in the house. Mr. LSU Tiger, Ryan Brooks. Nessmeyer. Now, the LSU fans should be getting pretty excited because Greg the Cooler I'm not all on board on the Nussmeier train. So maybe Ryan Brooks is getting excited about his LSU Tigers this year. Jay Chapman is in the house. Matt is in the house. Rock and Rant, Mr. Hurricane is here. Hoodin Ninja 4. James. Richard L. The Colorado Buffalo. Hope everyone is having a pleasant holiday. I do agree with that. No question about it. LFG is here. John Dry, Tough Tony is in the house. James, Tyler Brown is here. Renee Rocha, Raka Rocha is in the house. Appreciate you coming on in. Who else? Did I miss anybody? Stephen McNeely is here. Thank you, Stephen. Early Peak member is in the house. Mr. Monkey Says is on board. Buckshot Kid. Tony Rodriguez is here. Tumasta. LV Seminole is present. Robert Perez is here. Mr. Hoosier. Daniel Montcastle is in the house. Mr. Bearcat. Steve is here. Did Bill Walton ever have a bad day or an enemy? Bill Walton has passed away today. Thank you for bringing that up, Steve. I appreciate it. I mentioned this on Twitter. I was born in 1968. My first NBA memories. In fact, one of my first memories at all about reading books in grade school was reading about Dr. J. Julius Erving playing in the ABA as he was coming over to the NBA. And then my first remembrance of Bill Walton, the 1977 Portland Trail Blazers. And I was back in 75, 76, 77, the Minnesota Timberwolves did not have a basketball team. I rooted for the Philadelphia 76ers. And I know I was only 9 years old, but I got really into the NBA. And I remember the Philadelphia 76ers getting up on Portland in that series. I don't even remember. I don't remember how the series went, but I know Philadelphia was ahead. For some reason, I remember that. And I remember Bill Walton, this big guy with the big red hair and the big red beard. He would run the baseline, and Portland would swing it over and give him the ball, and then he'd make something work. He'd make something happen. Portland Trail Blazers won the NBA championship against the Philadelphia 76ers. That's my first memory of Bill Walton. I don't remember him when he played for UCLA. I was too young. But Bill Walton, one of the greats all time, of course, great announcer. He died on the day after the Pac-12 died. Bill Walton, who was the Pac-12's best ambassador. Bill Walton, who would come on live and talk about the Pac-12 being the conference of champions over and over and over again. Pac-12 after dark. It could be a Stanford, Arizona State basketball game, and he would treat it as the most important event that was going on that day. Great ambassador of the Pac-12. Great ambassador for college basketball. Of course, he played for the Boston Celtics. Won a couple of NBA World Champions, one with Portland, one with Boston, with Kevin McHale, Larry Bird, Robert Parrish, Dennis Johnson. Bill Walton, one of the greats of all time. Rest in paradise, Mr. Bill Walton. Black Rain is in the house. Son of Sarek is here. Chad Bracey is here. Stephen Vitt and Rick Johnson is here. Okay, let's get to it. Thank you for everybody joining us on this holiday, Memorial Day. Let's get to it. Kevin Pryor is in the house. First of all, a lot of reports early this evening, what would you do to change the NBA? Anthony Carlson asked the question. You know what I would do to change the NBA? Karl Anthony Towns hit a shot. I mean, I can't start. I mean, the Minnesota Timberwolves, Karl Anthony Towns is a very good 82 game player, but he ain't a good 16 game player where you need 16 wins in the playoffs. That's what I would change in the NBA for Karl Anthony Towns to hit a shot in the playoffs. My goodness. Okay. Brett McMurphy, SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, said the SEC will announce some kickoff times for the season's first 3 weeks on Thursday. So we're going to be covering that on Thursday. Thursday this week, the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey, some kickoff times for the first 3 weeks of the season. Then Brett McMurphy went on to report that the commissioner is saying, I don't expect a lot of conversations on football scheduling, whether remain at the 8 SEC league games or increase to 9 this week. The SEC schedules are done for the next 2 seasons, and we've gone over this before, right? The Texas athletic director, the Texas Longhorn athletic director, and others have hinted towards the strong possibility that the SEC will move to 9 conference games in 2026. But it's not happening for the next 2 years. They've got time. Watch what happens in ACC country. They've got time. Brett McMurphy also reported the SEC Commissioner Greg Sankey said league will discuss player availability reports such as injury reports at the SEC spring meetings, but does not expect a decision this week. The Big Ten started their injury report last year. What was it, 2 hours before the game? 2 hours before kickoff. 2 hours before kickoff, every Big Ten team needed to have a report out in the open, public report on their player availability. And that has to do for gambling reasons. Right? These conferences are going to be making some big deals with these gambling sports books that provide them real-time information. One of those things is the availability report. So I would expect the SEC to get that done before the season starts for 2024. Ross Dellinger reports Greg Sankey is asked about collective bargaining with athletes, which he said would require employment. Sankey said, I've not had a student athlete come to me and say, I want to be taxed like an employee. Heather Dinich says Greg Sankey said Congress still has an opportunity to use the structure of the settlement to enact legislation to strengthen the future of college sports. He says it's a national system that deserves national standards. So again, as we all knew this, they're really looking for congressional help when it comes to the antitrust issues. Wants all this codified. Wants a special carve-out Congress. Protect them from future lawsuits. That is either going to have to happen or there's going to have to be collective bargaining with the student athletes becoming employees. Sankey did say that any action from Congress between now and the election is unlikely. And then, of course, you start out next January. The new House, they take their seats January 20th, whatever that, I don't know. Maybe it's early. Maybe it's January 1st, whatever. The president, whoever wins the election, their new term or the next president, whatever, starts January 20th. I guess the House probably is January 1st, 2nd, or 3rd. I don't know, but we're not going to get any action for a while. So Sankey and the leaders better hope that they can get the congressional leaders on board early in 2025. While the settlement, this is Seth Emerson, while the settlement does call for the elimination of scholarship limits for teams, Greg Sankey indicates that roster limits hasn't been decided on. That's a concept. So there is a lot. There's a lot of details that have not been decided on. Right? Just a lot of details that have not been decided on. Now, Greg Sankey should not have said this. It's okay for me to say it. It's okay for Lee Go Gators to say it. It's okay for DP to say it. It's okay for Don Scruggs to say it. It's okay for the Jayhawker 83 to say it. It's not okay for Greg Sankey to say this in public today. The SEC, Greg Sankey asked about Georgia quarterback Jaden Rashada suing Florida coach Billy Napier. I'm not a fan of lawsuits. Now, he did go on and say, Heather Dinich, I'm not a fan of lawsuits. That's what I think. He says it's not only the lawsuit, it's not the only lawsuit to involve a coach, and it won't be the last. He did say he acknowledged, Greg Sankey acknowledged people have the right to pursue their legal grievances. I'm not a fan of lawsuits. Should not have said that. The commissioner should not have said that in public. Doesn't help anything, and it could hurt a lot of things. Again, sometimes Greg Sankey is awfully loosey-goosey. Greg Sankey is too loosey-goosey, and Tony Petitti is way too tight, way too silent. Not impressed with that at all. Not impressed with that at all. So what's going to come out of these spring meetings? Probably not a whole heck of a lot. Nothing that would interest us at college football's peek around the corner. The scheduling aspect. Now, we're going to learn something on Thursday. We're going to learn kickoff times, stuff like that for the first 3 weeks of the SEC season here in 2024. That is of interest to us. But I don't think a whole lot more is going to come out of those spring meetings. We're going to keep an eye on it. We're going to track it. We're going to report to you anything of interest that comes out of those meetings. But I don't think it's going to be a whole heck of a lot. Now, I want to quickly go through this article. College football news. The ACC, before we get into the Utah, I want the Utah going to the ACC possibility. I want to talk about the ACC 2024 season. The ACC 2024 college football primer. The top players, the games, the transfers, the storylines, the predictions. Lost in all the hullabaloo about schools wanting a new deal. Don't worry, that's next. The ACC just did what the SEC should have. Yeah, it's a long plane ride, and yeah, the Bay Area isn't all in on college football like the people of Tallahassee and Clemson are, but grabbing Stanford and California made the ACC a coast-to-coast conference which opened up geographic doors to potentially add more schools. It now has one of the biggest media markets in the country all to itself. I do not agree with all that. There's no way the SEC should have went and expanded out in the West. Nah, that's not going to help the SEC. The SEC is just fine. All of that and the getting those two cranks up the ACC academic profile even more. SMU is about moving into Texas for the ACC and the Dallas market as a possible start. But if nothing else, the conference is ahead of the game when it comes to protecting itself because Florida State really doesn't want to be in the ACC. And Clemson, among others, isn't too keen on it either. Forgetting the social media dream posts from those who assume all the legal stuff will come to a head and the ACC programs will get to weigh out from their draconian grant of rights media deal, there's still a large question about where that bigger payday might come from. If nothing else, all the screaming, yelling, grouchiness will make for an interesting backdrop in what should be a magnificent season, partly because the quarterbacks in the ACC will make the conference as much of a must-watch as any in the bunch. Clemson is set with Klubnik. SMU has sneaky hot NFL prospect in Preston Stone. But the new guys are coming in to take over, play up the few notches. DJ Ungolangale going to Florida State is a big deal. Grayson McCall from Coastal Carolina stepping in at North Carolina State. And this is a great comment here. And therefore, the present of Quinn Ewers and Arch Manning, it would be Malik Murphy show at Texas instead of Duke. Don't sleep on Malik Murphy. Don't sleep on him. He'd be the starter at Texas in the SEC game 1. But Quinn Ewers happened to be the number 1 quarterback in his class. Arch Manning happened to be the number 1 quarterback in his high school class. Duke's got a guy with a lot of promise. Tyler Shuck is about to have a monster season at Louisville. Max Johnson found a home at North Carolina. Kyle McCord went from hanging the Ohio State O to taking on Syracuse. Kyle McCord is orange. And Cam Ward might just be the passer Miami has been waiting for a very long time. Bold predictions. I don't agree with this one. Notre Dame will rip through the ACC. Now that they might. Notre Dame could go 11-1 if they beat Texas A&M in game 1 at College Station. Texas A&M right now tonight, I checked it tonight. Texas A&M is still a 1-point favorite. But according to this bold predictions, if Notre Dame could go and grab one of the top 4 spots, if they win all the games or almost win all the games, they might want to have a bigger relationship with the ACC. That's the bold prediction coming out of college football news. I disagree. I don't think Notre Dame is going to have a bigger relationship than they do now with the ACC. Another prediction, the ACC will send at least 13 of its 17 teams to bowl games. That's how many in the current alignment went to the bowls last season. Teams will pick each other off left and right, but there will be just enough wins across the board to get at least 12 in the bowl games and 2, possibly 3 in the expanded college football playoff. I agree with the next one. Cal will go on a late run to pull off its first winning season since 2019. I agree. That Mendoza, the quarterback, at the running back. They've got a great tight end. California Bears are actually going to score some points this year. I think California is going bowling. I think they're going to have a winning season. 7-5 in 2024. I know I'm crazy. I am absolutely nuts. The 10 best ACC players, Cam Ward is number 1. If he does not turn over the ball, right? If he doesn't fumble the ball, if he doesn't stay too long in the pocket, Cam Ward, you can't turn over the ball for a couple of big reasons. One, Miami Hurricanes are looking to get to the ACC championship game. Mario Cristobal is trying to keep his job. The fans are yearning for Miami Hurricanes to challenge for the ACC championship finally. Number two, Cam Ward, you can't be fumbling the ball and expect to be drafted in the 2 top rounds of the 2025 NFL Spring Draft. Cam Ward, number 1. Hampton, number 2. Carter, the great linebacker of Clemson. Respro, the great move the chains wide receiver of the Hurricanes. You got Peyton, the edge rusher, taking over for Jared Verse at Florida State. Patrick Peyton, of course, the great Jaden Ott, the running back of California. And you see the rest of them listed there. The 10 biggest ACC games. Number 10, Miami at Louisville, October 19th. Virginia Tech at Miami, September 27th. Louisville at Clemson, November 2nd. Florida State and Georgia Tech, Dublin, Ireland, August 24th. We're going to be doing a watch party here at Peek Around the Corner. We're going to be doing a watch party. So come join us early in the morning. I believe it's like 9 o'clock Eastern time in the morning, right? North Carolina State, Clemson. North Carolina State, North Carolina. You guys know I'm big on the Wolfpack this year. Clemson, Virginia Tech. North Carolina, Florida State at Miami, and Clemson at Florida State, the top 10 games. The top 10 ACC transfers. You got Sam Brown, Miami Hurricanes, number 8. You got Jake Johnson coming in from Texas A&M, going to North Carolina. Justin Jolly, the tight end coming from UConn. And if you watch the spring football game, Justin Jolly was magnificent for the Wolfpack. Noah Rogers coming from the Buckeyes. Looks like he's going to get a lot of playing time. Marvin Jones, a linebacker from Georgia to Florida State. Damian Martinez, the great running back from Oregon State. We'll see what Roydell Williams does for Florida State coming from Alabama. The top 10 quarterback transfers. Look at this list. Look what transferred into the ACC at the quarterback position. Cam Ward, DJ Ungalungale, Grayson McCall. Look at that. Kyle McCord. Holy smokes. Holy smokes. And then you got 3 new ACC head coaches. Fran Brown, Syracuse. Manny Diaz, Duke. And then Bill O'Brien, Boston College. So the ACC is going to be a fun conference to watch this year. And my predictions are going to be outlandish. They're going to be crazy. So buckle up, brace for impact. I think something crazy is going to happen in the ACC. I think something crazy is going to happen in the ACC. Okay, let's get to the big story. People are talking about. I'm going to put up a Heartland College Sports article. They talked about a little bit here. Pete Mundo, Heartland College Sports. Discussion about Utah possibly moving to the ACC despite Big 12 move report. The Utah Utes haven't even officially joined the Big 12 conference yet. But that hasn't stopped new speculation from surfacing in conference realignment conversations. According to the New York Daily News columnist and national sports writer, Hall of Famer Dick Weiss, There is speculation circulating about Utah possibly moving to the ACC, despite its recent move to the Big 12. This was Dick Weiss's tweet. Speculation is circulating about potential shifts in college sports conferences. There is discussion about Utah possibly moving to the ACC, despite its recent move to the Big 12, with some suggesting the ACC might be a better fit due to its ESPN network agreement and potential for the ACC network to grow and all that. The speculation centers around the ACC's TV agreement, with ESPN being a potentially better fit regarding TV value over the long term. Here are the revenues for the Power Conference for the fiscal year 2023. The Big Ten, $880 million, SEC, $852, ACC, $707, Pac-12, $603, Big 12, $510. The ACC saw the biggest year-to-year jump due to the carriage agreement between Comcast and the ACC network fully vesting. And the conference also made an extra $40 million due to the Orange Bowl not being a college football playoff semifinal, meaning it was a host bowl for the conference. Per school distributions were topped again by the Power 2. However, the Big 12 Conference appears to be in a much more stable place than the ACC. In the ACC, it's been well rumored that Florida State and Clemson are looking for a way out of the conference. If the two biggest football brands leave, it would decimate the league and likely lead to an exodus. Whereas the Big 12 stability is something the conference should be very pleased with when compared to the ACC. However, in the Wild West, that is the never-ending saga of conference realignment. Conferences should always be looking for competitive edges to keep current members satisfied and future members interested. The good news for the Big 12, under the leadership of Commissioner Brett Yormark, who has been remaining on the cutting edge of college athletics, has led the Big 12 to its current place as the third best conference of the power conferences. Now, before I get on to what I'm about to tell you on this subject, I also want to remind you if you can just give me a moment here. Just give me a moment. Hold on. This was an article from Heartland College Sports, the same website that I just showed you about yesterday's report. This was a report from Brian Clinton, posted on September 27th, 2023, from Heartland College Sports. This is Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of Utah, talking about possibility of future changes in realignment. Now, this was a Utah football press conference on September 25th, 2023. We're going to listen to what he says, and then I will make my comments on this whole story.
After the game on Saturday, Chip Kelly kind of alluded to a feeling of nostalgia in terms of a lot of these teams are playing for the last time with Oregon State kind of being left behind. Just curious to hear what you think about kind of that nostalgia.
Yeah, it's, football has changed so much. I mean, we went years and years and years with very little change at all. And now all of a sudden it's complete upheaval. And I can tell you right now, we'll play UCLA again down the road because it's going to change again. And there's going to be, a massive shift. And I think UCLA and Utah will probably end up in the same situation, in a good situation. And so temporarily, yeah, it's going to be a few years before we play again. But I think with the changes on the horizon that it'll be at some point back together again, somehow, some way.
Okay, I don't know if you were able to hear that or not. And I'll just go through the points. Kyle Whittingham basically said that Utah and UCLA are going to be playing against each other someday. They're going to be in the same situation again. A few years down the road, there's going to be more movement, and UCLA and Utah are going to be in the same position. What Kyle Whittingham is saying is he believes that Utah is going to be in the Power 2 years down the road. That is Utah's goal. Now, Kyle Whittingham is a long-time, incredibly successful head coach of Utah. Why would he know what was about to happen years down the road? Well, he doesn't really, right? I do all I can to try to give you a peek around the corner of what's about to happen. But do I really know? Do I have a crystal ball? No, I don't. Our track record speaks for itself in giving you that peek around the corner, but we don't have a crystal ball. Neither does Kyle Whittingham. I've had a lot of people say to me since this, what was the basketball guy talking about? Now, he did say speculation on Utah going to ACC. He's not reporting it. This Fletcher gentleman did not report it. They might have gotten some word. They're speculating on it. I will say this, though. I understand why Kyle Whittingham said what he said. I do. Now, that was stated on September 25th, 2023. And we reported to you all. When we were reporting to you all that Oregon and Washington were going to be the next schools that the Big Ten were going to grab before they went to the Southeast. It was either going to happen within those 5 months or 5 years from now, but the Big Ten was going to expand west again before they entered into the Southeast Conference. We were not the ones that said no on Oregon. We said yes in Oregon and Washington. They're coming. If the Big 12 was able to crack open the Pac-12 another time, it was going to happen, and it happened. But through all that reporting, anytime people asked about Utah, we said, yeah, Utah, there's a little bit there. There is more chatter about Utah than there is about California, Berkeley, of someday going to the Big Ten. We said, the national reporters, God bless them, when they kept talking about California, Stanford, for us, it was nothing on California. Nothing. We said it over and over and over again. California, Berkeley, incredible school. I don't need to see it on a chart. Incredible school. Either the number 1 or the number 2 public university in the country. I get it. But all I can tell you is from what the information that we get at Peek Around the Corner. And it has led us to the track record that we have. And then you can interpret that however you want. But California wasn't part of any chatter that we received from the Big Ten money purchase. None, nada, zilch, zip, zero, nothing. It was Oregon and Washington. And then there was a little bit of Utah. It's why Kyle Whittingham said what he said. Because he heard the chatter from his president, from the athletic director, whatever. We also told you during that time that USC, if USC could have picked a university to come with them, besides Notre Dame to the Big Ten, if they could have picked a Pac-12 university, it would have been Utah. It would have been Utah. So Utah, if when we reported, and we got raked over the coals, when we reported that if the SEC goes to 20 schools, if they do, that Kansas is going to be in play for the 20th school in the SEC. We went through all the reasons why them, North Carolina State, Virginia, they're all in play for 20th school in the SEC. No, Kansas is not talking to the SEC. We did not say that. No, we didn't say that Kansas is going to go to the SEC as number 20. But they will be in play. Well, we believe here at Peek Around the Corner, if and when the Big Ten goes to 22 or 24, Utah will be in play. They will be in play. Doesn't mean they're going to go there, but you see, Utah is they received, when these schools called the Big Ten and the SEC and they called everybody. Look, I'm going to show you guys something. This was back in a Ross Dellinger article. August 1st, remember, it was August 4th. It was August 4th when the Pac-12 imploded. August 1st, by this point on the same day, the Pac-12 revealed its streaming-only media package to league presidents. The ACC had seriously engaged in expansion discussions with Arizona, Arizona State, Utah, Cal, and Stanford. This was Ross Dellinger. August 1st, he's going back through the story. The move was triggered by Colorado's departure from the Pac-12, which was made official July 27th. The ACC's conversations with the 5 schools were serious. Phillips held discussions with the 5 presidents. However, there was some momentum in the endeavor. The ACC found itself behind a rival Power 5 conference, the Big 12, which both had both the geography and time on its side. The geography and time. The Big 12 had been talking to these schools for months, and we reported that to you. And there was others out there, no, there's no talking, Greg is lying, Greg. No, conversations were hot and heavy between the Big 12 and these schools and the ACC and these schools. Now, Arizona State, and Utah decided to say yes to the Big 12 and no to the ACC at this time. Okay? They did that. Now, there are advantages that the Big 12 has over the ACC when it comes to Utah's perspective, Arizona State, geography, stability. stability. Knowing that the ACC, knowing that Florida State and Clemson, the chatter was out there. Remember, we were reporting it over and over and over again that Florida State was going to declare something in the first quarter of 2024. They did it 9 days before first quarter 2024. Utah chose stability. And I'm sorry, but we are at May 27th, and Big 12 has a huge advantage in stability. But not only that, but the Big 12's new contract is going to come up in 2029, 2030. Big 12 is going to belly up at the bar again with their media partners, ACC, with ESPN and Fox. They're going to have an exclusive negotiating window. And the ACC at this point, as we believe, we don't know for sure. We know nothing for sure when it comes to the ACC. They might be stuck with the same Tier 1 contract all the way to 2036. And if you join the ACC, like Stanford and California did, you have to sign on the dotted line to the grant of rights all the way to 2036. Now you might say, Greg, who cares about the grant of rights? It's already been proven that the grant of rights is not binding. No, it hasn't. No, it hasn't been proven. Florida State's in the court. Clemson's in the court. They're trying to get a settlement. They're trying to get a number figure, or they're trying to get an outright victory, but nothing has been proven about breaking the gore yet. Oklahoma and Texas paid out of the Big 12 gore. They did not break it. The Big 12 gore was not found invalid. They just paid out of it. Big 12 made a deal that was best for them. Texas and Oklahoma, SEC made a deal that was best for them. Same thing could happen here in the ACC. A certain settlement number. Here, if I was, now I haven't heard any of this. I haven't heard any of this. But if I was to argue, and then I'm going to counter argue my argument. But if I was to argue, if I was to take the position that Utah could become a member of the ACC after the ACC implodes. Now remember, we believe here at Peek Around the Corner, and you can disagree, but we believe Florida State and Clemson are going to be gone. They're going to get a number in which they're going to write a check and the ACC is going to take it. That's what we truly believe. We believe through the Florida State money purge that the Florida State is willing to overpay a premium price to get it done early, but we don't know if the ACC is interested in that. But we believe Florida State is. If I was to argue Utah going to the ACC after the ACC implosion, this would be my argument. We see what Oregon State and Washington State are doing right now. They're trying to lure, they're trying to create a Frankenstein conference, trying to be the most valuable conference to media partners in the G5 ranks by taking potentially 6 Mountain West schools and a couple others, possibly from the AAC. And they're going to use some of that divorce settlement money from the other Pac-12 members that left, and they're going to use that to lure, to pay the exit fees, to bring on in the top Mountain West schools plus a couple others. Imagine the implosion, the ACC, it happens. Imagine Florida State and Clemson, possibly North Carolina, possibly Miami, writing these big checks to get out of the conference, to join SEC, the Big Ten, and now the ACC has a pot of gold to try to lure a Utah, to try to lure in Arizona State, a Colorado, a West Virginia. That if you want to use that as the argument, I think that has at least some meat to the bone. But even after saying that, the problem with that scenario is that media contract from the ESPN and the ACC is not guaranteed past 2027. And if the ACC implodes anytime early, that contract is going to be ripped up. It's going to be slashed to the point where I think that pot of gold that's going to be left for the other ACC members coming from the checking account or the private capital account of Florida State, Clemson, and North Carolina, Miami. I think that pot of gold to the other ACC schools are going to be used to make those members whole for the next 10 years. Whatever new contract they have coming out, whatever contract they're able to get from a media partner, be that ESPN or somebody else. I don't think they're going to be in a position to use that money to lure a Utah, to lure another school from the Big 12 into the ACC. I don't think it's happening, ladies and gentlemen. And Kyle Whittingham, Utah is, when Kyle Whittingham, I already played it, when he's talking about being in the same conference as UCLA someday, he's not talking about UCLA leaving the Big Ten. He's thinking about Utah going to the Big Ten. And I think Utah will be in play if the Big Ten decides to go to 22 to 24 schools. I don't believe Utah. I don't believe Kansas. I don't believe any school in Texas. And I don't believe Stanford is in play in the next wave of Big Ten realignment. I don't think so. The Big Ten is going to the Southeast. We've been talking about this for 2 years. After they grabbed Oregon and Washington, they're going to the Southeast. And you can see the plan taking shape. We said it a couple years ago, but people now currently are seeing it take place. But, if Notre Dame ever decides to say, okay, I see where the two power conferences are building even bigger and bigger and bigger platforms, we're going to jump into the Big Ten. If Notre Dame jumps in the Big Ten goes to 24. Utah is in play. Just like I say what Kansas is in play for the SEC if they go to 20. The Big Ten goes to 22 or 24 someday. Utah is in play. We've heard enough about you. We told you this a year ago. Kyle Whittingham was talking about the Big Ten. Utah is thinking about the Big Ten. Why would they do another move to the ACC? Why would they have to pay out of the Big 12 core? Why would they take on all this risk? There is no upside. Utah's got to do what Utah is doing. Become a bigger and bigger research university. The state is crazy about college football. Utah Ute fan base is growing. The brand is growing. They've got relationships built with USC. I do not know the backstory behind it, but we told you about a year ago, if USC were to take one Pac-12 school to bring with them, it would not have been Washington, surprisingly enough. For whatever reason, I don't know. Washington's in the Big Ten, so it doesn't matter. It would have been Utah. And that might mean something years ahead. We're not saying Utah to the Big Ten. We're saying they're going to be in play once the Big Ten gets to that 20th school in the Southeast, and then we'll see what happens. I don't see Utah to the ACC. Don't see it at all. I'm going to take your comments. I'm going to take your phone calls. Jacobra Cat, my dad, when he wanted more mom time, paid me $50 to leave the home. I assume, like Utah, hungry for the Big Ten, it was about budget and academic prestige. Thank you, Jacobra Cat, for your super chat. Thank you so very much. Look, there's academic prestige in the ACC. On paper, some of those public universities probably lined up with Utah. More than what Utah lines up with many of the Big 12 schools. But Utah just came from an incredibly unstable situation. They came from an incredible, unstable situation. They're not going to jump into another one. I don't believe it's. I don't believe there's. It just ain't going to happen. It just ain't going to happen. But I'm willing to listen. I'm willing to listen. Keep chalking. The Big Ten can pluck a Utah type team whenever they want to. No urgency with that. If it happens, it ain't going to happen for, years down the road. I agree with that. Please remember Ryan Willie. Absolutely. Please remember those who gave their lives to protect this country. We started the show with that. Some gave all and all gave some. Appreciate it. John Teal, those charts gave me a false sense of security. Thank you, John Teal, for your super chat, for your long-term, continuous generosity to this channel. Thank you, John Teal. Same with you, R. Webb. Hey, Greg, is Utah an ACC title contender? Thank you for the super chat, R. Webb. Utah is a Big 12 contender. Big 12 contender. Thank you, John Teal, R. Webb, Jacober Cat, for your generosity. I got to open up the phone lines. Let me know what you think. Did I get it all wrong? 763-260-1333. The phone line is open. I know a lot of people say that Utah, there's no way, no how they're ever going to get to the Big Ten. Well, we're not going to, we're definitely not reporting that here at Peek Around the Corner. But we said at the time that there was more chatter about Utah than California, Berkeley. And it's still true today for the Big Ten.
Call from
Ryan Thomas.
Ryan Thomas, the floor is yours. What do you got to say, good sir?
Just laughing. And they accuse you of fan fiction, Greg. That's rich. I would remind some folks about Utah that the state legislature back in the 1980s took control in it, and the governor had final veto power over what the board of trustees and the university president decides. And in a state that's culturally and economically conservative, they are not going to approve a Utah move to the ACC if it means they're taking less money, a partial share, and having to pay out $15-20 million to the Big 12. They're just not. Yeah. And with reality here is that 99-year provision, legally, that's not in any other GOR and any other membership agreement for any other conference, but it was added there to add a term to membership to basically add some substance to an exit fee. So even if a member left after the GOR expired, the conference would get something out of them. That was the whole point of the provision. And sorry for me and my echo chamber troll in the chat. I hate to tell you this, but the 99-year agreement provision applies to everybody starting in 2025. So, if Utah thought it was clever getting that exempted for 2024, yeah, that's the same university president who just told the Pac-12 to hold out for $50 million based on a spreadsheet you saw from a finance professor. So I'll go ahead and let you judge the wisdom of that negotiating. But anyway, I think it's clear. The issue that comes down to is what's going to come out of all the congressional registration related to the House settlement, and it's going to come down to the governance rules and everything that comes there. But the ACC, it doesn't know what its future is, and certainly there's different factions pulling for different things and different, different voices everywhere. But man, I mean, why Utah doesn't have the time to wait, and by the time there's clarity on the ACC situation, it's going to be in that 99-year agreement, having the conference own its score for the next 5 years, and basically having to pay a massive massive $100 million exit fee for 2 years worth of revenue. So that's the facts of the reality. And I don't know who this guy is. Apparently, this guy that tweets this out says he's 8,000 years covering basketball. I didn't know that cavemen played basketball, Greg. I guess that's something new to me. But I mean, the guy's been out of the game for a while, so I'm not really sure how credible it is. But Macula kind of pointed this out. It just goes to show you how the frenzy and hunger for realignment talk right now, Greg. Yeah. But everybody sort of just needs to hold on right now, because right now is the cloak part. The dagger part's not happening until the governance rules drop and until there's congressional legislation and there's clarity to this. That's when the dagger part helps. But right now it's all cloak. Yeah. And Utah just doesn't have any, there's no stability, and I don't think they would be allowed to make such a reckless move, without any certainty. Because if you remember back in, how many votes? The ACC had like 3 or 4 informal votes on membership before they finally got Stanford and Cal into the conference. I mean, could you imagine if Utah would have held out and not gone with Arizona State, and Colorado, and had been part of that failed vote 3 times? The university president would have lost his job. He would have been dismissed. I mean, because that wouldn't, let's accept a 60% share and not get accepted. Yeah. So I mean, I think it doesn't make sense, and really. Right now, what's happened is people's cheese has slipped off their cracker and it slipped onto their fish or their steak, and it's just wrong, Greg. Yeah. We need to clear this up. So anyway, that's all I have to say. Great job, great show. Take care.
Appreciate it, Ryan. Thank you very much. Great call. Great call once again from Ryan Thomas. Long-time member, long-time caller of the show. Appreciate it. Ryan Willie, I'm still hoping that KU moves to the Big Ten. A lot of Jayhawks hope that as well. It won't be Big Ten 19 or won't be Big Ten 20. Can say that. But we'll see what happens. I think Immaculate is in the house. Looks like Realignment Fever is back on full. When this speculation popped out, I did not pay any attention to it. And then I kept getting more direct messages and more. And then this basketball guy talked about it. So then I finally had to discuss it today on Twitter and on the show tonight.
Call from
Rick Johnson.
Mr. Rick Johnson, thanks for calling. The floor is yours.
Thanks, Craig. Hey, my understanding was that when USC was looking to join the Big Ten, that the Big Ten wanted Stanford as the partner, and then Fox stepped in and said, no, you're not getting Stanford, you're getting UCLA. So it made some sense on the Big Ten's part, because if you look at what geographic area has the most Big Ten alumni, it's in the Bay Area. So, Stanford's not great at football, but all the Big Ten teams could, host events there and whatnot. So, that, and I think, again, this is just my speculation, but whenever Notre Dame joins the Big Ten and they have to bring a partner with them, I can't imagine it would be Utah. I would bet that they would insist on Stanford, just like they tried to get Stanford into the ACC. So I think Stanford might be more in play than maybe people think.
Well, I will say this. We knew when we broke the story of USC called the Big Ten, we knew that was USC. We didn't know the UCLA part of the story. A lot of people on Twitter, on X, on message boards says, Greg Pflugar broke the USC-UCLA story. No, we did not. We did the USC part. We had no clue on the UCLA. In fact, we did a episode 22. If anybody wants to go watch episode 22, we made that long time ago. It went through the process of how we broke the story, of all the tweets that we put up on Twitter at the time. If you go read them all, we said USC +1 or USC +3, but we didn't know what that other team was. It was never told to us. And the only thing that was told to us, Rick Johnson, it was USC called the Big Ten alone. And we tweeted that out over and over and over again. Now, after all this happened, when June 30th happened and the world was shocked, the story came out, USC called the Big Ten alone. They did not team up with another school. Oklahoma and Texas both called the SEC together. USC called the Big Ten alone. UCLA called the Big Ten alone. When we were interviewed by the Los Angeles Times, and you can still read the article, it came out August 20th, 2022. At that time, we were we were told that if Notre Dame came in and Big Ten was hopeful, that Stanford would be the 20th member. Notre Dame did not pull the trigger. So then when we quickly started this YouTube show on a week before that article came out, we knew that article on Los Angeles Times came out, we started reporting to you all, it's going to be Oregon and Washington. It's not going to be Stanford and California. In fact, there's nothing on California, and the Stanford thing has slipped to the side. And then when it was Oregon and Washington, when the implosion was happening, we let everybody know that it was Utah that was getting now the most future Big Ten traction of all those schools. So I'm only letting everybody know this because people question Kyle Whittingham going, how can he possibly say that? He's in over his head. He's delusional. I can say, and I'm able to say this, but the chatter, it was real. It was real. Like, not that Utah was going to become a Big Ten member in this last wave. That was never real. But we're talking future. We're talking Utah has some Big Ten traction. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but Kyle Whittingham was talking from a position of having people talk to him that it was a possibility. And that's why maybe he should not have said that in public, but that's what he was feeling. That's what a lot of people feel. It's a lot what people feel today. So that is part of the story that I wanted to bring up, because when people talk about Utah to the ACC, Utah isn't going to do anything until they play out this Big Ten card years down the road to see if they can get into a Power 2, because it would be in the Big Ten. And they got the door is slightly ajar for them years down the road. So I just wanted to bring all that, the background of all that up, and why Kyle Whittingham, I don't know Kyle Whittingham, he doesn't know me, but I got a feeling that people talk to him about, yes, Utah is a player years down the road.
Gotcha. Thanks, Greg. Appreciate it.
Call again, sir. Appreciate it. Again, thank you, Ryan Willie, for that super chat. I do appreciate it. Devil Frog says the Big Ten should add Notre Dame, Stanford, Miami, Duke, Q's plus one more. You know, Jamie Thornton, Mrs. Arkansas Razorback, no doubt that Kansas is a lot of value and they make a lot of money. They are a great brand. It's funny that North Carolina and Kansas seem to be the two schools the SEC and the Big Ten have the same interest in. Go when you get a chance. Everybody in the chat, when you get a chance, go watch the great John Kurtz, Kansas State, Big 12 college football, Big 12 college football channel. John Kurtz. He does a great job. He's incredibly talented. Way more talented than myself. Way more, very smart guy. He does a great job of interviewing people. Just another college football YouTube host that has skill sets that I don't have. John Kurtz interviewed Andrew Carter from News and Observer in North Carolina, and he interviewed him about North Carolina, Big Ten of the SEC. Big Ten of the SEC. It's a great interview. It was just done in the last week. And if you listen to Andrew Carter, you know, he tells you, look, things have changed at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. Kevin Guswich moved on. Things have changed. The landscape has changed. Everything that we've been reporting to you for the last year. Andrew Carter also to John Kurtz is like SEC Big Ten, SEC Big Ten, where North Carolina really has never been a football brand. Never been a football brand. Yes, we would be one of the top targets for the SEC, one of the top targets for the Big Ten. Big growing, a state that is growing in population, big brand. But we've never been a football brand. We've never had a fan base that would fill out that stadium. He talked about 1 year with North Carolina. They won a bunch of games. They won 11 games. It was the best year they had in 40 years. And they was finally starting to fill up the football stadium at the end of the year. North Carolina football just doesn't have the juice. So he says, do we really fit in the SEC? Do we really fit in the SEC? Well, I can tell you. Now, you don't have to listen to me. Forget about what I say. But, you know, ESPN, Pete Thamel, Paul Feinbaum, everyone says that North Carolina is the SEC's number one target. Besides Notre Dame, of course. But North Carolina, the number one target. We have reported to you from the money purchase, all the associations, that North Carolina is the SEC's number one, number two, number three, number four, number five target. They're circling the wagons around North Carolina. They have circled the landscape at North Carolina has changed to a lean SEC. Board of Trustees, the Board of Governors of North Carolina has to leave the ACC. They're not the number one target because of football. They're not. But they're the number one target. So, hang on to that. Hold on.
Call from
Immaculate.
Immaculate, can you just hold on? I just want to finish my line of thinking here. Appreciate it. So stick with me here. North Carolina, number one target. ESPN's been reporting you this. I have been. And they're not this football brand. They would not increase the football brand of the SEC, but yet they're the number one target. Think about that. Why? Big state, virgin country, no SEC, no Big Ten in the state, and they got basketball up the wazoo. Greg Sankey believes the basketball value is going to go up. He's right with Brett Yormark on this. So when you think about the SEC growing its conference, if they grow the conference, if they're forced to grow the conference to play defense against the Big Ten, North Carolina is the number one target, not a football brand. As Clemson is probably right there with North Carolina, but if they go to 19 or 20, it probably isn't going to be football brands. They don't need the football brands. They're probably going to try to occupy another space in college sports. They might have to be forced. They might have to go with the North Carolina State as one of their 19 or 20th school. They might have to go to Virginia for the 19th or 20th school. They might have to go to Kansas for the 19th or 20th school. Their 17th school, they're going to do all they can to get a non-football brand school to be their 17th school. Think about that. Think about that. This is not the addition of Oklahoma, Texas. This is not the addition of Texas A&M or even Missouri. This is the addition of a big basketball brand, North Carolina. They don't want the Big Ten to get it, North Carolina. So I just want you to think about that. If the SEC has to grow beyond 18 schools. Immaculate, Mr. Hot Guy, the floor is yours.
Whew, what a day, man.
Yes.
Who would have
yes.
thought that some little, I don't know, at first I thought that they were fake talks from people on Twitter. They were just kind of making stuff up about Utah. But it's kind of turned into a whirlwind.
Yeah, it did.
I think it's kind of showing us that there's a lot of people. I mean, I saw it with activity on X and even with some videos that I was on with folks. The amount of people had died down when everything went legal, when everything was about legal cases. I mean, it's not interesting. I get it. But now one little story comes out that's, possibly even fake, and it's brought so many more people back. Familiar faces, names.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. It's like it's just been dormant, waiting. So with the settlements, just getting finalized here, and everyone's starting to look forward again. And I think we're probably in for some pretty fast weeks up ahead. I personally don't think Utah's really looking at the AC to go to. I don't know how anyone could think to go there when their one single network partner isn't willing to, opt in for the future at this point in time. Like how could you say yes until you know if they're even going to go past 27? So to me, it's kind of way far ahead of when this should actually be talked about, but it's interesting nonetheless.
Yeah.
In terms of your North Carolina talk just now, it's interesting. Yes, they're definitely basketball power, but I think what we're seeing now is there's a lot more look about potential. Once this is done, once these moves are made, this is what it's going to be for a long time. And so I think there's also having to look at what's the school's potential. And in this case, UNC for football. I think they're showing the desire to spend a lot more in it. Now, you could even say maybe it's shown in basketball, as basketball has kind of dropped off a little bit. We see this weird little balance that happens between, are you a basketball school or a football school? And it's pretty hard to be both. You might even say that they've started to focus more on football than on basketball, but we'll see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, man. I I'm still a little taken aback by how much this has picked up real quickly. So
yeah. Yeah, I just, I mean, if I was making the argument, if I was, speculating, making the argument of how Utah could go to the ACC, I'd probably start and end with the possibility of the ACC, these schools having this pot of gold after Florida State and Clemson write their checks, after North Carolina, and then they use that to lure Utah. But I don't even think that wouldn't get it done. But that would be the argument that I would use, and I haven't even heard that argument being used. So,
well, that on top of that, but if you're Utah, you still kind of have to worry about, okay, we don't really know yet what's going on with the privates. I think that's going to be coming out here shortly, and then we'll really be able to project out better where that's going to go. I made a little comment in there earlier that might have been misconstrued by some folks. I look at a combination for the Big Ten. If the privates decide they're not going to build their own conference, that's probably going to include the entirety of Florida State, Miami, Notre Dame, Stanford, Duke, and California. And it's not about looking at any individual school. Like, you can look at Duke, why would they take them? Why would you take California? It's about the whole. It's about the likes of Stanford saying, well, we'll come and we'll join the Big Ten Academic Alliance, which probably means leaving the IPLC, but that includes all of this coming with. So I don't know, people can think whatever they want. We're still well away from that ever even being possible. But if you're looking at a situation like that where that's possible, and you're, say, a Utah, the reason why you'd even want to go over there is to maintain your connection to Stanford. And if something like those 6 schools might end up going to the Big Ten, well, that locks them out at 24. I mean, now you're stuck in the ACC, left behind. So I think it's a very complex situation for all these parties and these entities to look at and say, we need to be really careful where we land, because this definitely isn't over, and there's a lot more coming still, especially once these conferences have their own ability to write their own rules. I mean, I've been talking about the autonomous conferences being the new ruling thing, and I still think that that's a highly likely possibility, but we might see autonomy being spread out between the conferences. So everyone's got to be real careful about making any moves ahead of knowing what all these details are. Yeah. Because that could spark a whole lot. So, I mean, just food for thought for folks out there. There's a lot of different ways people can think on this, and that's the fun part about it. But I just give folks, there's a lot of folks that are being, we'll just say, affected by this. And I would just caution them, like, don't worry just yet. Just relax. We've got a ways to go. Just kind of watch and see how this progresses. But anyways, man, appreciate that you're on top of it, and looking forward to see what you have to say here in the short term when things start popping off.
Yes, they're going to start popping off. You got it. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate it. Great call by Immaculate, Mr. Hawkeye, the Evil Badger, Ryan Willie. Notre Dame would be a mid-level team in the SEC. Super chat. Thank you so much for your kindness, Mr. Badger, for your continued generosity. Look, I'm excited about all these games. Okay, do I still have the line up? Hold on. Do I still? I know it's minus. Yeah, there it is. And that is still the line. If you can't see the screen, it's Notre Dame +1 at College Station, Texas A&M. Now, Notre Dame, right? Third year for Marcus Freeman. This is the time. This is it. Right? We heard the complaints of Brian Kelly. Notre Dame, they had a ceiling put on him when Brian Kelly, right? He he was a good recruiter, but he couldn't quite land you the top guys at certain positions, especially the quarterback room. Brian Kelly for Notre Dame. Notre Dame would get whipped by the SEC schools in the playoffs and the bowl games. And here it is. This is the third year for Marcus Freeman. Got a nasty, experienced defense. The wide receiver room looks like it's improving. Riley Leonard, we don't know about his injury situation. They got QB2, QB3, QB4 are battling it out. CJ Carr is probably the most talented quarterback, and he's a true freshman this year. So they're going down to College Station. Now, this is the time. This is the time for Notre Dame, for the Marcus Freeman era, to make a statement. You got Mike Elko, first year at Texas A&M. Texas A&M is expected to go 8-4 this year. 9-3, 8-4, possibly 7-5. They're not going to be one of the top. They're not supposed to be one of the top 6 SEC teams. They're not going to battle. It doesn't look like they're going to battle Georgia, Alabama, Ole Miss, Missouri, LSU. They're not going to be in the top. Oklahoma, Texas. They're not going to be in the top 6 or 7. So Notre Dame should be able to go down there and beat the Aggies, right? This is a big, I know it's the first game. We have the college football playoffs. You can lose 3 games and make the playoffs, especially if you're a big brand like Notre Dame. But I'm telling you, this first game is everything. Everything for Notre Dame. If they go down to College Station, Nick Scorton. I know a lot of people in the chat don't know who he is, and that's fine. I'm telling you, man, go look at the highlights of Nick Scorton. He was a true freshman at Purdue last year, and he was a man among men. True freshman last year. And he was unbelievable at the end of the year. And he goes in the portal. Texas A&M takes out their checkbook. Notre Dame, you've got to block. You've got to help on Nick Scorton. That is a huge game for the Fighting Irish. Huge game for Marcus Freeman. Huge game. And I know this is unfair, but first, they've got the offensive coordinator. They've always wanted Mike Denbrock. Now it's time, Fighting Irish. Now it is time. You got to win that game. You got to win that game. Anyways, back to the phone line, 763-260-1333. Thank you, Ryan Willie, for that super chat. Appreciate it. I don't. Marcus Freeman, well, is Marcus Freeman on the hot? No, he's not on the hot seat. Not on the hot seat. He'll get year 4. And they were good. I'm just saying, this is year 3. Look, Notre Dame has, and this is another beauty part about the expanded playoffs. There's a lot of football programs out there, a lot of football coaches out there, a lot of good ones out there that really never expected to go to a 14 playoff. Sure, they dreamt it. Sure, the fan base dreamt it. But with this 12-team playoffs, there is more than 12 fan bases out there that absolutely expect and demand their football program to get into the playoffs this year. Right? Let's go through the Louisville. Their fan base, I think we can make it. We should make it. Miami Hurricane fans. Wait, we got Cam Ward. We got him in for a reason. Of course we should make it. Florida State says you better not deny us this time, playoff committee. The people who rank us. No way, no how. We can't be denied. What about the Iowa Hawkeyes? Mr. Immaculate. They didn't have the pressure of going to they're not going to go to the 14 playoffs, but the 12-team playoffs? With that defense? How about Kansas State? Their fan base. Yeah, they're going to have a great year, but they don't have the pressure of getting into the playoffs. Oh, suddenly they do. Texas Tech Red Raiders. Big old fan base. They're gonna want a playoff. They're gonna want a playoffs. If not this year, McGuire, in the next 3 years, you better get to the playoffs at least once. Dabo Sweeney, Clemson, you better get back. You better get back to the playoffs. If you don't make the playoffs, holy smokes, get a head coach in here that will go into the transfer portal. Penn State, you better make the playoffs this year. Hey, Coach Franklin, you've got to make the playoffs this year. The pressure has been amped up 100-fold. 100-fold. The excitement, I think, is amped up 100-fold. I think the games have more meaning, not less, more meaning. Phone lines open, 763-260-1333, 763-260-1333. SEC meetings this morning, this week. We got a report that just came out from ESPN going over the SEC commissioner, what he said earlier this evening. Greg Sankey laid out in general terms on Monday evening what congressional help from college sports could look like, saying that college sports is a national system that deserves national standards.
Call from
John.
John is on the line. The floor is yours. How you doing, sir?
Fine, Greg. How are you tonight?
I'm doing real good.
Hey, look, I was just going to make a little comment about Utah. It looks like the ACC is going to have a little pocket money to spend, and which makes me think that either FSU or Clemson, one of the suspects, is about to make a move. I just wanted to see what you thought about that.
Well, that's what we're speculating on other people's speculation. Why this Utah to the ACC thing is going on right now, why this speculation is going on. If I was to make an argument on that, I would be saying what you just said. In other words, the ACC is going to have some pocket change when Clemson and Florida State write those big checks. Will they use that money? Will the ACC schools use that money to lure in a Utah? That's the best argument. I still don't think it's going to happen. Because I think those ACC schools are going to have their media contract, their exposure slashed in half. And then I think they're going to use that pot of gold coming from Florida State, coming from a Clemson, coming from a North Carolina, coming from a Miami. And they're going to use that to make themselves whole for the next 10 years. But that is the argument that I would use. But go ahead, sir.
Would you think that Oregon State and Washington State, since they have the Pac-12 network, might try to leverage that to join the ACC and maybe make a West Wing, a coast-to-coast conference between the two?
After the ACC implodes, depending on how many schools leave. So, if only 3 schools leave, Will the ACC look to expand? I don't know. But if they go more than 3 schools, if more than 3 schools leave, they're going to need to expand. They have a chance to maintain any type of contract with ESPN. Then I think they would look to go possibly to Oregon State and Washington State. We've always said that the chances of Oregon State and Washington State becoming ACC members is a whole lot higher than them becoming Big 12 members. Big 12 is not interested. But the ACC might venture out and do that to create a bigger wing for Stanford in California. I believe there's a chance. But we're going to have to wait and see how many schools leave and all that stuff.
Well, my gut feeling is that the ACC is going to stay together, minus 2 or 3 teams.
Yeah.
And if they do, I think they're going to backfill with like Tulane, USF, Texas Tech has crossed my mind because they're all AAU schools, as far as I know. Let me put it that way. And if they do, I believe they'll probably go to a structured payout. How you perform is what you make in the conference.
Mm-hmm.
Like teams 1 through 3 make the most, 4 through 7 make the second most, and so on.
Yeah.
But that's just my feeling, and I just wanted to throw it out there and see what you thought about it.
Well, I think a beautiful comment. The USF thing makes a lot of sense because if the ACC implodes and they lose Florida State and Miami, I think USF is going to be expecting a phone call. I believe University of South Florida Bulls will be expecting a phone call. Plus, they are AAU. Texas Tech isn't AAU yet, but Tulane and USF are. But yeah, I think the Bulls are going to be they're definitely going to be in play for ACC expansion if they need to do that, right? If they're forced to, per the contract.
All right. Well, Greg, I appreciate you taking my call, buddy. You have a good night.
You got it. Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Great call. Okay. Call again. Call again. Okay. Beautiful call. Beautiful call. And Connecticut fan brings up Connecticut. Yeah. Yeah, UConn is a very, very interesting candidate as well. And they've always been a candidate for the ACC.
Call from
Jamie Thornton.
Jamie Thornton, Mrs. Arkansas Razorback. The floor is yours.
Whoop, hey, Greg, and my wife wanted me to tell you and the little general especially, I hope she's having a great Memorial Day.
Yeah, she is. She had a great night last night. She went to the Luis Miguel concert, the great Mexican singer. Went to the concert here at Target Center in Minneapolis with her friends. She had a fantastic night. Unfortunately, though, she had to come home to me. She could not, she couldn't live that fantasy any longer of being at the Luis Miguel concert. But she had a fantastic night. She's doing great. Thank you, Jamie. Appreciate it.
Yeah, Greg, and there's nothing better to come home to. She got to come home. She got to hear one great singer and come home to another great singer. So I mean, you're right.
She's. Let me put it. Let me put this. After 22 years of listening to me sing, I think Maria Hernandez Garcia Flugar has had enough. She's had enough of listening to me. But go ahead, Jamie. The floor is yours.
Well, getting on a serious note, because it is Memorial Day, I hope you've had your big, thick, wet, juicy cheeseburger, double cheeseburger with your 3 types of cheese on it. I'm sorry. I had to throw that one out there from
no problem.
the picture from Expedition Greg.
I understand.
But no, Yeah, the thing that's interesting about Utah, and I know Immaculate and several people have mentioned it, is the timing. And we know the talk that came out of Utah when everything was going down last year during the Holy Smoke Theater. And they weren't exactly thrilled, right? Obviously, they still want to get in the Big. And who wouldn't? I mean, everybody wants to be in the Big Ten or the SEC. But this just smells to me like, and I think you kind of mentioned it earlier, we talk about the North Carolina State backpack with UNC, but they really seem to have an association and really want to be tied to Stanford. And it just feels like they want, now that they really sitting there thinking about it, they feel like maybe their only way to get in the Big is to go ahead and try to be tied to them and still be in that ACC conference with them. Mm-hmm. And hoping maybe they get a ride through them. I'm not sure, obviously I don't know anybody at Utah, so I know Ryan Thomas, he makes some great points, and he's a big BYU fan in there. And the Wild Ute, I don't know what the Wild Ute has to say about it. I haven't seen or heard from the Wild Ute, but it just makes sense as far as, if they're trying to tie themselves, obviously they were real big pro on the Pac. They didn't want the Pac to break up. They wanted to associate still with them. So it's just, I don't know. They just signed that grant of rights already, correct, with the Big 12. Yeah. I'm assuming that's already happened. So that's going to be, that's going to be a big issue right there. I don't know. That's another thing people aren't talking about. I mean, that's just going into effect now. So how much money, and like you said, is the ACC, I mean, sure, there's no doubt the ACC would love to take Utah today. They would love to go ahead and add them. But is it worth taking all that money that you're going to be getting, like you said, from Florida State and Clemson, to throw it all out on Utah? I'm just not so sure I'm buying that. Yeah. I'm really not.
Yeah, I'm not
Yeah, and they would love to have them. Yeah. I mean, USF and Utah would certainly be two schools to add. But I don't know. I think it's a little too late now for Utah, and I know that all happened so quick when the Pac imploded. Yeah. And that's how crazy these things can happen. We don't talk about that enough. I mean, you had the Colorado thing nailed, and when all that happened, and all of a sudden, just like that, when they went in there that next day to have a conference call to try to save the conference, because Arizona State, their president was the same way, pro-Pac. We want to try to save the Pac one last time. And then to find out, when Washington and Oregon was gone, that's it. So there seems to be, it's going to be interesting. Immaculate mentioned it, about the court rulings that's going to be coming up, the cases. There seems to be this potential, he talks about it with the Ivy and this potential group of academic schools that could line up from when the potential ACC implodes. But it's interesting to me that not only is this coming out of Utah, we've also heard the talk, and I'm sure you have too over the last day or two, about the talk of that ESPN option that we've all been waiting to hear from on the ACC, and how it would be impacted based on schools the ACC would add. And the fact that actually kind of came out before the Utah stories broke, it makes me wonder if there's something actually already going on here. You know what I'm saying, Greg? Like that was the only thing we've heard in a while about the ACC ESPN option, is they just mentioned, here's how it would be impacted by adding schools, and they mentioned Utah as a possibility. So that we are now, I don't know if people have looked at the calendar, but we're now less than 8 months away from that deadline.
Yeah.
For the ESPN option to opt in.
We're closing in on it. Yep.
Yeah. So I'm just wondering, between the smoke between that being talked about this weekend and this, if there is some kind of connection, nothing would surprise me anymore, Greg, for sure. But it's certainly something to think about. And I hope everyone's had a great Memorial Day weekend. And as others have mentioned, thank you, Greg, because I know your father served, and anybody anybody here that their family members served and gave their life. We certainly, I know Mary and I both certainly appreciate them for, we're able to go and enjoy all the things we do, plus all of us gathering here for these great Greg Flugar shows. So even the great John Kirk's popping in and watching. So see, you are absolutely the man. So
I don't know
we
about
want to thank
that,
you for
yes.
that. We want to thank you for that, Greg, and thank you for all you do. And I hope, again, everybody enjoys the rest of their Memorial Day. And it's going to be fun to just watch it play out and see what happens. But, yeah, with those deadlines, that ACC ESPN deadline, folks, we're less than 8 months away now. So something for them to be talking about that, too, at the same time with this Utah stuff. There might be something brewing there. I'm not sure.
Yep.
But I think, like you said, too, and the last caller said it, I think we might be getting really close to maybe a potential settlement, negotiated settlement, too, with either FSU or Clemson. So, anyway, you guys have a great one, Greg. Thanks so much.
You got it. Appreciate it, Jamie. Great call. Great call by Mrs. Arkansas Razorback, Jamie Thornton. Jonathan Weaver, is Florida State still favored to go to the Big Ten? Yeah, we believe so. Absolutely. But I want to make it clear. Florida State hasn't shut the door down on the SEC. So, Florida State does not have an offer from the Big Ten. That's not how it works. And I don't care how many people say it. I don't care how many times they say it. Florida State does not have an offer in the Big Ten. You know, when we were, hold on.
Call from
Ben.
Can you hold on for just a moment, sir?
Sure.
I appreciate it. When we were breaking the USC to the Big Ten story, it wasn't till the very end. It wasn't until after June 18th, between June 18th and June 30th, did USC and the Big Ten decide amongst each other that USC would apply and the Big Ten would offer, knowing that both sides would say yes. And they talked for a few months, because we were the ones breaking the story. USC did not get an official offer, until the end game of it. School doesn't get an offer now. It is absolutely ridiculous that people keep saying this. Florida State to the Big Ten, yeah, still favored. Florida State has a stand-in offer. What does that even mean? What type of offer do they have? No media company is going to give the Big Ten and the SEC any green light to offer any school when currently that school has another conference holding their media rights until 2036. I'm going to be blunt. I'm just going to say it. It's the most ridiculous part of this whole. Nobody has a stand-in offer. But Florida State is still favored in my belief. But Florida State wants a bidding war. Florida State wants a perceived bidding war. That's what Oregon and Washington did not have. Florida State, first of all, there's no stand-in offer. And if there was, Florida State definitely would not be talking about that they have a stand. No, it's all just a bunch of hooey. Thank you, caller, for your patience. The floor is yours.
Yeah, Greg, I wanted to get an update on the matinee and what's happening with that. And my biggest question is, who's going to pay the extra money to get out of the conference? And then they signed that deal with the Mountain West for $10 million per team. So a minimum of $27 million per team. Who's going to carry the load on that if the matinee does happen?
Okay, I appreciate it. I had a little bit of a hard time hearing you. You wanted an update on the matinee. There is no update from the previous update. Number two, good question. Who's going to pay the freight on those schools exiting the Mountain West? That was your question, correct?
Yeah, correct.
On the exit fee. That's a great question, and I don't know the answer. And that is one of the one of the ways to lure those schools out of the Mountain West. Oregon State and Washington State are probably going to have to pay for most of that freight, right? They're going to have to make it so it is beneficial for these schools to leave this 12-team Mountain West Conference to join a new constructed Pac-12 conference. And getting their exit fee paid off, or most of it, is probably going to be one of the big negotiation points to it. Because there's no question, I think there's very little question that a Boise State's going to make more money in the new constituted Pac-8, Pac-10 conference than they would staying at the Mountain West. So now they've got to be, that exit fee is probably going to have to get paid by Oregon State and Washington State divorce settlement, and maybe a few other incentives, better exposure, but we'll see. But no update on the matinee. It's not because we're not poking and prodding. We just don't have an update that we can go with.
All right. Thank you very much.
You got it. Appreciate it. Great call. Call again, sir.
Call from
Wild Ute.
Wild Ute is on the line. Holy smokes. Can you hold on just for a second, sir?
Of course.
I got to get caught up here. Ryan Thomas, Super Chat. Greg should create his own conference. The Big Fridge. The Big Fridge. You might be onto something there. You're either on something or you're onto something. And of course, if I was forming the conference and if it was the Big Fridge, as we all know, the light bulb in my refrigerator does not shine brightly. Does not shine brightly. Thank you so much for the super chat. Jacober Cat, Texas Tech or TCU to the Big Ten. I'm going to have to punt on that one. I think we're going to have to wait on that. Depending on a whole, you know what? I'm going to take that. It's a great question. Thank you for the super chat. You deserve an answer, Jacober Cat, but I don't have one. Maybe Wild Ute can take that one on at the Big 12 Mafia, College Football Mafia channel. I think there's a lot of variables to that. TCU, small private university, but what TCU has that fits in line with the Big 12, a Big 10, they have this high academic standards that is very attractive to the Big 10 schools. And of course, they're in a great market. They're not a Big 10 university. They're not a like-minded university. Texas Tech is not quite a like-minded university either. Big fan base, big alumnus, big alumni. I'm not able to answer that question. We're going to throw that to Wild Ute when I'm done with the super chats. We're going to have to wait on that. There's a lot of different variables in with that, like who else is coming with and all that stuff, if the Big Ten ever goes to 24 schools, because none of that is happening unless the Big Ten goes to 24. Thank you for the super chat, Jacober Cat, Ryan Thomas. What would the membership requirements be on the Big Fridge Conference? Well, whatever schools go to the Big Fridge Conference, their school cafeterias cannot allow cheese on their hamburgers. That is the requirement. Wild Ute, thank you for the super chat. Wild Ute, thank you for your patience. The floor is yours.
Juicy Lucy's are a bit overrated, aren't they?
They are disgusting. Disgusting. They're the worst. Besides Juicy Lucy putting cheese in the middle of a hot dog, cheese steaks, they all of those are the it's the optimum. It is the top level of the cheesification of America, which I am here to destroy. But go ahead, sir.
Utah to the ACC.
Yeah.
Utah to the ACC. Isn't this one about a year too late?
Yes, sir.
I mean,
yes.
The story, Dellantier came out last August with, the 5.
I'll put it up on the screen. We talked about it earlier. Yep, go ahead.
Yep, so the 5 schools considering going to the ACC.
Yep.
And at that time, there was a decision made to go over to the Big 12.
Yes.
At that, for a variety of reasons and things that aren't even being talked about. Like, seriously, if the ACC was going to offer Stanford and Cal 30% revenue distributions over the next several years, that's probably a deal that Utah would have got. Maybe a 50 or 75 at best. It wouldn't have probably been a full membership, right?
Yep.
And so there's a lot of reasons then it didn't make sense. And now, what? Why would Utah want to go to the ACC right now? The ACC is literally in shambles. You have your 2 best brands leaving the conference. They're going to get out. We all know that. You know that. I know that. Everybody knows that. They don't want to be there. This conference is considerably weakened. When you do all of the analysis on this, I'm a finance guy. I've broken out the financials, the future cash flows and everything. I know that probably doesn't mean much to a lot of folks. Yeah. But looking at the contract value, once you lose FSU and Clemson, the Big 12 deal is worth more than the ACC deal. I mean, that's not including any type of exit penalties and stuff to existing ACC members, but Utah wouldn't have access to that money.
Okay, but let me play devil's advocate.
Okay.
Let me play devil's advocate. And I did earlier, and I'll be more specific. Let's say let's say 4 ACC schools. Now, we're just pretending here, okay? Just pretending. 4 ACC schools. North Carolina, Florida State, Miami, and Clemson all pay $350 million to get out. Okay? Right. The conference has $1.4 billion. Okay? The conference takes, let's say, $200 million off the top. They keep that for their war chest, whatever. So now there's $1.2 billion, and each and the schools are going to get paid this money throughout the years. Going to help them keep them somewhat whole when it comes to the new media contract, because the new media contract is going to get slashed well under Big 12 projections, as you mentioned. But, the AC says, well, wait a second here. We'll give some of the money to, we'll give $600 million of that last of the $1.2 billion to current ACC schools, pay that out over the years. But then we'll take that $600 other million and we'll give $150 to Utah, $150 to Arizona, $150 to Arizona State, $150 to Colorado, and we say you got $150 million each, and with your 4 schools in our conference, we'll be able to redo a decent media contract in 2036. You'll be with more prestigious schools, supposedly. What do you think about that, Wildwood? Because that's the only avenue that I could possibly see of the ACC even attempting to lure Utah.
I would say that's a hard no. Hard no. Because that's making a few assumptions here. So $1.2 billion in settlement monies under that circumstance, right, after the ACC takes their cut. Yeah. You're splitting that 14 ways with the existing members. That should be split 14 ways. And that's making the assumption that all the money's coming in day one from the settlement. It's likely going to be staggered over a course of years.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I just don't really see that really happening. It's not like 1.2 is going to be dropping immediately into the ACC bank account. That's going to be a staggering dollar amount. And so I just don't see the long game. It's lose. And like, I care about the long game, investing in the long term.
Yeah.
And the youths need to have that focus too, because this thing's blowing up today, tomorrow, in 5 years, and 10 years. Because what happens after? Okay, say that happened and everything. Okay, so Utah goes over, the Four Corner schools go over. Then all of a sudden, in 2035 and 36, once the ACC contract expires, like, are they going to get a solid media deal then? Like, do you think that the brands are going to lift with all these West Coast teams jumping in and playing this jumbled mess of like non-consistent matchups?
Yeah.
Like, these teams don't have any history. Like, we know that, eyeballs, to get eyeballs and intrigue, you need rivalries. You need regional matchups. Like, that is still important in the game if you don't have massive brands. And so there's just nothing there. Like, seriously, Greg, like, looking at the football matchups, like, Utah has played Big 12 opponents 274 times in its history. 274 times Big 12 opponents. In the ACC, they played ACC opponents, including Stanford and Cal, and that makes up most of this number, 37 times. So 274 versus 37.
Yeah.
Like, you talk about juice and squeeze and juice and everything. There's zero juice to squeeze here. So if you jumped in that and took the money up front, it's going to burn you in 10 years. Like, it's not going to get any better and stuff. I just don't see long-term growth there for the youths.
Yeah.
It's a much better idea letting this thing burn to the ground and then eating up ACC schools and building up the Big 12. That really is the play, I think.
Yeah, that is the play. That's what's probably going to happen. That's the only argument that I could think of, and it's not a very good argument. I concur. So, yeah, I'm expecting you to go over this again early this week, right?
Well, we'll go over it. The funny thing is, like, there was zero like smoke or anything.
Yeah.
About this, so like, it makes me think, like, where the heck is this coming from?
I don't know.
Because like, there's just no chatter. This thing died back 10 months ago. There was real chatter 10, 12 months ago about the ACC, and that was legit. But like, really, like, where is this coming from? It seems to me like an ACC conspiracy theory. I'm serious about that. Like, just made up by somebody, planted, and then it's just a little bit of fight back because, I mean, the ACC is in troubled water right now. So just don't think there's anything to this.
Yeah. All right, man. I do appreciate it. Love you guys. So when are you guys on next?
Yeah, we'll be on tomorrow night. College Football Mafia, the Big 12 Mafia show, starting at 6 p.m. Mountain Time. And thanks for having me on, Greg.
You got it. I appreciate the phone call, sir. Wild Ute, the man, the myth, the legend. Wild Ute, College Football Mafia, does a great job on that channel. I appreciate it. If you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Hit that subscribe button and then turn on your notifications, because we can come on live at any time. We did not plan to come on live Memorial Day evening, but we decided to, and I'm glad we did. A lot of interest, a lot of people coming on in. I do appreciate it. So hit the subscribe button, turn on your notifications, smash the like button. I want to thank everybody for their wondrous donations. Without those donations, we can't keep the lights on. We can't do a live show almost every single day of the week. So I appreciate all the donations, the comments in the chat room, and of course the phone calls. You guys have done an unbelievable job once again. I put out a poll earlier this evening. Should I do a live show? 25% of you said no. 75% of you said yes. The 75% wins it. So we did a live show, and it became a pretty big one. So I do appreciate you all coming on in. Before we close out this live show, we're talking about Holy Smokes Theater, the matinee, the afternoon. We had a call earlier today. Do you have an update? No, we don't. Then we got the prime time at night ACC drama, Holy Smokes Theater, Florida State and Clemson at the middle of the stage, and then you got North Carolina, you got Miami, and you got Notre Dame in the far, far, far end where there's only darkness, only shadow. Notre Dame is over there, and you got North Carolina State in the first row. I do believe I got a feeling that there is going to be an update when it comes to the primetime Holy Smokes Theater this week. I think I'm pretty sure. I'm not 100% sure, but I'm pretty sure. It could come tomorrow or it could come Wednesday. It all depends on when me and a certain person can connect again. But we're probably going to have an update when it comes. We haven't had an update when it comes to the primetime show, the ACC drama. A little bit more movement inside the Holy Smokes Theater. It looks like something is percolating. So keep your head on a swivel. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you open up your notifications. And please smash the like button if you have liked our content tonight. Brace for impact. Again, keep your head on a swivel. Until next time. And next time could be just right around the corner here at college football's peak around the corner. Until next time, from all of us at PATC to all of you, please, you all take great care of each other. Thank you so very much.